Welcome to the show, and today we are joined by William Yell, owner of the Featherstone Brewery in Grahamstown in the Eastern Cape. My name is Holger Meyer, and this is Beer World. Welcome to the show, and today I'm visiting William Yell. He's the owner of Featherstone Brewery and Entrepid Brewing in Makhanda or Grahamstown. Welcome to the show, William.
Thanks, Holger, and thanks for having me.
Tell us a little bit about Grahamstown. Everybody knows Grahamstown for a couple of things, and there's a beautiful university, there's some wonderful schools. Tell us a little bit about the town that you live in.
Yeah, as you say, that probably makes up most of what Grahamstown is. Definitely hinging on the university. Also the schools. I think there are at least 5 major schools in Grahamstown. So we have lots of, school kids and students coming into town. But there's a fairly well-established community. I think the residents uphold, from the academic staff to, general, everyone that you would have in a town. And also a big farming community. I mean, we're in the heart of all the game reserves and game lodges and game hunting. And the sea is not very far away from us too. The town itself has kind of somewhat been neglected by the municipality, similar to many other smaller towns. Although we've got a very active residents association that's put lots of pressure on. So recently the roads have been redone. Quite a lot of the infrastructure has been restored. There's still more to be done, but things are looking a lot better than they were.
Yeah. And the highlights of Grahamstown must be the festival.
Oh, it absolutely is. Yeah, the Grahamstown Festival is the main event. And without the festival, I was wondering whether, a lot of the resident community and the town itself would sustain itself.
Yeah.
But it's not only that. There are a couple of other key events. The university graduation is another time where we get lots of people from out of town in. The schools also have lots of inter-school sports days, which bring people in. And they do a National Science Festival, Sci-Fest, once a year, which is another key event. And then there are many other conferences at the Settlers Monument and at the university to keep people in and out of the town, which is good because, a lot of the other smaller towns around the country don't necessarily have, ingress and, people other than holiday towns along the coast.
What attracted you to Grahamstown? Where are you from?
Well, before moving to Grahamstown, we lived in Johannesburg, but I did spend my early childhood years until almost high school in the Southern Cape, in Plettenberg Bay. We lived on a small holding outside of town, and my heart was kind of here. I always had the idea to get away from the big city. KwaZulu-Natal was probably closest to where I was. I've got family there. In fact, they've all left now.
Yeah.
all the chaos. My kids were at university here at Rhodes, and we visited a few times and explored the area. And there were parts that were really nice and quiet. And also felt that there wasn't much going on in the craft beer business. In fact, at the time I came and looked, even Richmond Hill was a little brewery next to a bar in Port Elizabeth. I think there may have been a tiny Daxies in East London, but from craft beer perspective, there wasn't really. And the idea to, open a brewery in this part of the world seemed like it would be, have some potential.
Yeah. But what do you do for a living?
I'd spent almost my entire career in telecommunications.
Okay. And
it reached a stage where I needed to make a change personally and kind of from the business.
Yeah.
But I'm still, after actually not being in telecommunications, I've actually started doing a couple of projects in that space again. And it's still super exciting.
Yeah.
But it's really nice in this world where we can all work remotely. I don't have to be near a building in Johannesburg. I can do it. I can be online from the farm, which is fantastic.
Yeah. And there's your boss in Joburg calling you.
No, it's not. Well, I don't know, when you work for yourself, customers are bosses, and that's a customer.
Exactly. Yeah. And how did you get into brewing?
I homebrewed many years ago when I was a student at university, but that was very much with the extract kits.
Yeah.
So it was 1 tin of syrup and a kilogram of Hewlett's white sugar. That seemed to do the job. And I'd spent some time traveling the world and explored various places and discovered well-made craft beer along the way. And it was the variety of different flavors that really got me interested. Having grown up in South Africa, all the lagers are pretty much the same. And of course, Castle Milk Stout. That's all we had. Then I came back to South Africa in 2010 and discovered how many craft breweries had sprung up, and got super interested and went back to, after traveling around the country, joined Warthog Brewers in Joburg and got into brewing. Okay. Fantastic bunch of people that helped me. I mean, when I attended my first meeting, there was Donnie talking about gas laws and, composition of bubbles. And I was like, I'm not really sure how to even do all grain brewing.
I thought Donnie only spoke about clean glasses.
Oh, those are his two favorite topics. I came across the clean glasses one later.
Yeah.
Yes, I was a bit bewildered, but it was super exciting. And then going from festival to festival, that they have, unfortunately missing the Pretoria one today. That's probably the only really real thing that I miss from Johannesburg and Pretoria is the beer community.
Yeah, yeah. And for
the events they have there.
And for the listeners that wonder who Donnie is, that's Donnie Odendaal, and we did a podcast with him a few weeks ago. So go and listen to it. He's a real clever guy.
Yeah, at the first festival I went to, I tasted all of these different beers, and there was most of the brewers were brewing blondes, and which is unusual because home brewers are normally a bit adventurous, but maybe for public opinion they brew blondes. And then I get to Donnie's stand, and it was the second time I tasted his beer, and I said to him, goodness, you get good craft beer, you get home brewers, and then you get Donnie's brews.
Yeah.
He makes great beer.
So when I did the beer book and then I did the beer map, I found a brewery in Grahamstown, and that was Featherstone Brewery. So tell us the story about the breweries and how there's a bit of a story to it.
Yeah, there is, Holger. So 2019, I'd always been home brewing with the intention of going commercial. I think as a lot of, aspirant home brewers do. And then the beer I brewed in 2019 for the Richmond Hill Home Brewing Festival was a Cottbusser style of beer, which is an ancient German beer. And fortunately, it won first prize in the competition, which included a full batch. And I spoke to Neil and said, I'm going to use this as a launch pad. And we came up with a plan. I got my own label and got the brand going. And Entrepid Brewing was born. Mm-hmm. And the idea of Entrepid Brewing was to have, beers that aren't necessarily, the standard styles that you'll get in the BJCP.
Okay.
Also was a perfect example of that, a little bit off the charts in a way. Not extreme beers because, average customers must like them.
Yeah.
And then a couple of months later, the brewer at Featherstone called me and said, he's going to be emigrating. Would I like to take over? And I thought long and hard because kind of my two plans in my mind were divergently different. But it did make sense to leapfrog and use the distribution and an existing brand. So from beginning of 2020, we merged together as one brewery with two different brewing brands, which wasn't great timing because I hadn't even got my license through and we were in lockdown. but it did serve well because if I didn't have the Featherstone brand at that stage, I probably would have really been in deep trouble.
Yeah,
because I could capitalize on that to do many other things like brewing wort, kits, etc. So I'm still keeping the two brands separate. Entrepid will probably be more of people call them, I don't know if they call them gypsy brands or contract brands, but I definitely do it myself, but it can easily be transported to other regions of the country and exist. Whereas Featherstone definitely is about the venue and the location and the local community.
Okay. And then you are working on becoming a destination so that people can visit the brewery or visit you.
Yeah, absolutely. It's been something, because we're on a game farm, the access is quite difficult. I mean, when I say difficult, it's for people from cities. They get a bit bewildered when they got to drive on bumpy, dirty roads and then go through farm gates, and you can't see where you're going. You've got to go through the bush, and then suddenly you get there. So the beer garden is going to be closer to the national road with much easier access. Unfortunately, it won't be co-located with the brewery, but certainly very close.
Yeah.
And we will be, having tour days and open days. So the brewery itself has just a little tasting room, space for about 5 or 6 people to taste the beers. So we definitely welcome people that, even now, that open by appointment. Call me up, say, with 5 or 6 people on a Saturday, and that's great.
Yeah.
But it's difficult to just be open for general access.
Yeah. I like the whole beer tourism thing, and I know you can't really go visit a whole lot of breweries in one day, but just a quick Google search, and I found some very interesting breweries around the Eastern Cape. But from Rhodes, I found a brewery, and when I discovered the brewery, it was closed. So it's a bit of a hobby brewery, but it's a beautiful brewery. Then from Rhodes, there's Hogsback has got a brewery. There are some in East London, obviously in PE. Do you know of any other breweries in the Eastern Cape?
Nieu-Bethesda's got one.
Oh, that's right.
Tsitsikamma, of course.
Tsitsikamma.
Doesn't really feel like the Eastern Cape. It feels more like the Western Cape, but it's literally on the border.
Yeah.
St. Francis and Jeffreys Bay have got lovely breweries too.
Yeah. I never quite know what's in the Eastern Cape and what's Western Cape.
Yeah, there's a big divide.
Yeah. The one topic that I like for craft brewers is collabs. And you mentioned Richmond Hill. What is that you do with him? Do you brew there, and then because he's got a bigger brewery, or what?
Yeah, the most important thing, I do contract brew quite a lot at Richmond Hill.
Okay.
Because they've got a canning line, which I unfortunately haven't got yet. So I've got to outsource my brewing and canning. So most of my can stock is brewed there, although recently I've, in smaller batches, been able to do contract canning alone. But yeah, we definitely do quite a lot together. One of the things is that for distribution, we both are selling each other's beers, which is great. It means that when I go and sell my beers, it gives a lot more range to offer. And Neil's very happy to have all the extra beers in his tap room for variety as well.
Okay.
We did an ad hoc, or should I say unofficial collab, where I brewed 1,000-liter batch, and I needed 500 liters, and the other 500 liters we churned into a cherry wit beer, which has been hugely successful. In fact, we get lots of requests to do the cherry wit again. We were hoping to brew it for Clarence, but Neil came back to me and said, "Oh no, Clarence doesn't allow fruit additions in their beers because it's no longer a craft beer." I found that very strange. But anyway, we'll probably be doing it as soon as all the brewing for Clarence is over.
Will you be going to Clarence?
Unfortunately not.
Oh.
I don't know. I couldn't go to every event,
No.
and I chose to go to Fools and Fans as a spectator or as a beer drinker.
Yeah.
Which I think, for what I wanted to get out of it, is probably a little bit better than Clarence. Although I know that everyone's at Clarence, so it probably would be the same.
Yeah.
It's a little bit smaller and more, what should I say, social at Fools and Fans.
And then the best outlets that support you, or where one can buy your beer?
Oh, as I say, as I just said, Richmond Hill in PE, but in Grahamstown itself, the ones that have been the most supportful is Major Fraser's, which is just opposite the university. They're a craft foodie and drink establishment.
Okay.
And they've been fantastic. I mean, I've literally, I think, taken over all of their taps apart from one cider tap that they've got. And he said if I was to produce a cider, he'll put mine on as well. But that's a whole nother story. So, and they also part of a group, Oyster Collection.
Okay.
And they've got lodges and bed and breakfast in various places. And the one at Addo, Fig Tree, has taken some of my beers and almost doubled the capacity of Fraser's. So for a couple of weeks, I was really battling to keep up until I could adjust my forecast and come online again.
Yeah.
And then Pick and Pay Liquors, which is a family outlet in Grahamstown. So it's easier to deal with because Pick and Pay is almost impossible as a small producer to deal with them.
No, it's not.
Have been phenomenally supportive. When I first went there with my first Entrepid, they took one case and put a few cans on the top shelf behind the till. I had to be hopeful that someone might spot an interesting beer. But now I've literally got probably 80% of the craft beer space in one of their fridges, which is great. And our latest beer, Wonky Donkey, has now become the top seller, which is great. And they would be ordering about 6 cases a time, and now we're up to about 14 to 15 cases every delivery, which shows an idea of how it's actually grown in that particular outlet.
Wonderful. I really like that Wonky Donkey branding. How did you come up with that?
Yeah, so the Wonky Donkey brand name was a working name when I took over Featherstone.
Okay.
But with all the chaos of the lockdown, to actually commercialize it, the timing wasn't right. I was really just keeping it. And I thought about it quite a lot. And Wonky Donkey being such a characteristic trait of Grahamstown with all the street donkeys, I thought a label that represents the broader town would be what I would like to aim for. And had a chat to quite a few different artists and people that do sketches, and I had a real idea in my head as to it needed to be black and white. And the picture kind of started forming until the last festival that we had. The organizers organized an artist to paint one of the walls, and he painted the donkeys on it. And as I drove past, I'm like, that's what I had in my head, but I couldn't quite explain it. So I took a couple of photographs, and then eventually got hold of the actual artist, who was out of town for a couple of months. And when he got back, we sat down, and it took him a few iterations to get it exactly right. And then that's what formed it. I mean, just represents everything about Grahamstown. You look at that label, and town is, it lives and breathes the town.
Yeah, yeah. I just think it also just shows again how important branding is. I mean, if you nail the branding, it actually, as long as the beer is acceptable, it will sell. And I can't judge the beer, but I can certainly judge the label and say that is a winner. Hey?
Yeah, you hit the nail on the head, and I think you have to get the formula right. That's exactly what I did. It was an epic package with, good enough beer, or,
Yeah.
It should be great beer, but, to get a bigger market appeal, you probably need to be in a fairly average, for us as beer people.
Yeah.
Fairly average beer,
Yeah.
Like, fairly light in color, not too far off a lager, nothing extreme. Not to say those other beers don't sell and sell quite well, but got to get that formula right. And it's absolutely. I noticed that with Wonky Donkey too. Is just looking at the can, people buy it.
Yeah.
If it's just another can on the shelf, you'll get the sales, but maybe not the same.
Yeah. Back to Grahamstown. When is the best time to visit you guys?
There's a lot of activity festivals. So festivals from the 23rd of June until about the 7th of July.
Okay.
It's super busy, and it's not a great time weather-wise.
Okay.
I would probably say springtime is the best time,
Yeah.
September. Our winter carries on a little bit late, so it's still quite cool.
Yeah.
The rest of the country's but September. The summer gets oppressively hot.
Okay.
But I guess that's just seasonal.
Yeah.
Definitely, I think festival's a great time, but accommodation is difficult. If you don't want to stay in town itself and have a little bit of a country, then I think almost any time of the year, as outside of holidays and events, get some quiet country relaxation.
Okay.
It's very, very quiet from July till September. Very, very quiet. Someone switched the lights off and disappeared. I think even the people running the festival go into hibernation.
William, and how do you get the community involved in what you do, or how do you get involved in the local community?
Yeah, that's been one to really work on, and I think I probably haven't done as much. I haven't focused enough on that. I was trying to get outlets in Cape Town and various others, but for National Beer Day, I got hold of the tourist office, and we came up with a kind of a plan to do National Beer Day, put together Ibiya, which is the Komboti and regular beer hybrid. And to launch that, we did a pub crawl in town. And we couldn't it wasn't a huge event because it would be too difficult to have, 100 people or more walking around from pub to pub for half an hour and knock a couple of drinks back. But we had a great mixture of people, including a couple of journalists and, representatives of, different parts of the community. And it was hugely successful. The feedback I had was absolutely, we should do this more often.
Yeah.
Because in a small town, people feel that there's not really a lot to do. And something like that that's completely different is great. But I think the next main thing will be to try and get, to get music. As soon as we get the beer garden up and running, really involve the local community in events that take place.
Yeah.
So I think being present in the community is hugely important.
And then no brewery can survive without suppliers. Who do you rely on? Yeah,
I think, being so far away, I can't just pop in and go and buy from, Beer Guevara down the road and it really depends on what I need and what makes the most sense. So the homebrew shop in Port Elizabeth, the brew house, from the beginning of this year, quite recently, have started to supply wholesale.
Okay.
And that really makes life much simpler because, it's close. I can phone them today, and later that afternoon, it's in the courier distribution center in Grahamstown.
Wow.
But most of it, I do get my bulk of supplies from Cape Town.
Okay.
But I think when it comes to specialty hops and the hops that I use, get them directly from Cape Town. Then when I order, then I'll get a bit of a bulk order. But I don't know. I get a sense that malt suppliers are going to be difficult in the next 18 months after the war in Ukraine.
They're all going to blame the Ukraine. Eh? Where is the best place for people to get in touch with you? Is there a website?
Yeah, the website is featherstonebrewery.co.za.
That's easy.
And all my other brands they're all present there, but they show us guest beers. That's the easiest way, and we do courier around the country.
Okay, wonderful.
But come and visit, and anyone that's listening to this podcast can just phone me and say you're coming down, and although our lodge isn't open, we'll always make a plan to accommodate beer lovers.
Yeah, that's how it goes. Eh? It's a wonderful community that we are privileged to be a part of. Eh?
Absolutely.
Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah, thanks for having me. It's always great to chat about beer and share the love of it.
Yeah. And there you go. Now you can visit the Eastern Cape and do a bit of a beer route or an ale trail there. Thanks, William.
Yeah, thanks, Holger. Chat soon.
And I look forward to visiting you.
Yeah, anytime.
thank you for listening to our stories here online. In the show notes, you will also find a link where you can subscribe to become part of our community and be notified when we upload our latest content.